Can your light change the color of your backdrop? Let's find out. Welcome back to the Studio Backdrops YouTube channel. Here we talk about photography, cinematography, and much more. Let's dive into the topic at hand. This backdrop can look like this under the wrong lighting. If you look at the backdrop outdoors and then look at the backdrop in your room under room lights, you will see that the colors of the backdrop look different. You might think it's a problem, but it's actually a special feature. Backdrops are actually made to adapt to different lighting setups and sources. You can actually take this backdrop and make it look completely different by changing the light source. That is a special feature of the backdrop. Please note that if you want to achieve the same result as our website images, you will need to use this exact lighting setup. Now let's go through a few different backdrops and see how they look under varying color temperatures. First, we have the Baroque Studio Mars airbrush hand-painted backdrop. And the light source we currently have is the Nanlite FC500 at a 5600 color temperature. If you can see that this light gives a very soft and diffused output of the backdrop, you can see the texture and the color very distinctly because 5600 Kelvin is the color temperature of daylight. Now let's see what happens when we take the color temperature a little cooler. Let's take it up to 6500 Kelvin. So as you can see, the light has gotten cooler. There's a bluishness to the light. When you have a warm colored backdrop like this, adding a blue light onto it suppresses the texture of the backdrop. If you compare this and the previous footage, you can see that there is a distinct difference. Now let's take the color temperature down all the other way to 2700 Kelvin. Now this is a warm light source. When you combine a warm light source with a warm colored backdrop like that, it really enhances the way the backdrop looks on camera. If you can see, all the texture and details of the backdrop are clearly visible. But if you look at my face, the color of my skin and the light on me has also changed. So it's a creative choice you can make while shooting. Now let's take the color temperature up to 4000 Kelvin. So the light is still warm, but it has gotten a little cooler than 2700 Kelvin. You can see again, the texture and the depth and the color of the backdrop has changed. Now if we take it back up all the way to 5600 Kelvin, we're back with daylight color. Now let's see this exact same color temperature difference and the effect it has on another backdrop. Previously we saw what effect the color temperature of a light source has on a warm pigment backdrop. Now let's see what it does to a cool pigment backdrop like the Backdrops Forever Outer Space Crushed Dyed backdrop. Right now, the color temperature is set at 5600 Kelvin, which is standard for all images on the Studio Backdrops website. Now let's see what happens when we change the color temperature. We are changing the color temperature from 5600 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin now. If you see, the light has gotten cooler, which makes the backdrop look bluer and brings out all the fine details of the backdrop right to the camera. But when we change it to 2700 Kelvin, we can see it completely suppresses the backdrop and all texture in it. You can see it almost looks black because the warm tone of the light is fighting with the cool pigment of the backdrop. This is called metamerism. Now let's change the color temperature to 4000 Kelvin. This is 4000 Kelvin. You can see this is the acceptable color temperature. The backdrop looks even, the lighting is nice. The blue color is a little faded because of the warm light that's coming from at 4000 Kelvin. But if we change it back to 5600 Kelvin, you can see the blues come back to life again and the backdrop looks absolutely lovely. Now let's see another backdrop. Now we have the Color Blaster Spongy Elegant Solid Backdrop. You can see it's a neutral colored backdrop which is being lit by a 5600 Kelvin light source. You can see the color looks very neutral and it's perfect for shooting skin tones. Now let's see what happens when we take the color temperature of the light source to 6500 Kelvin. The light source has gotten a little cooler, which means it's now giving blue wavelengths of light on to my face and the backdrop. If you look at the backdrop, you can see the color of the backdrop has changed. It looks a little greenish than before. This is because of the blue wavelength of light now hitting the backdrop. Now let's see what happens when we take the color temperature all the way to 2700 Kelvin, which is going to introduce warm wavelengths of light on the backdrop. That's very warm. Now if you can look at the backdrop, you see it's again, this is not a neutral tone. My skin looks different and the backdrop looks vividly different. Let's see what happens when we take it to 4000 Kelvin. Now this is 4000 Kelvin, which is a little warm right in the middle, yet you can see that the color is looking different. Let's now take it to 5600 Kelvin, which was our original color temperature. And there again, we have a different result. So what we infer from this is that even a neutral colored backdrop like this can look vastly different under different color temperatures of light. If you take this backdrop in the outdoors under the sun, or shoot it under a room lit by LEDs or any other source of light, the backdrop will look completely different. And this is something vital to remember while doing photography and videography with any backdrop. Now let's look at another backdrop, a paper backdrop. This is the Indus Light Dark Grey, number 16. If you can see, there's a very even, smooth tone because it's a paper backdrop. Let's see what happens to this effect when we take the light color temperature to 6500 Kelvin. As you can see, the gray starts looking a little blue. That's because the blue wavelengths of the light at this color temperature are affecting this backdrop and making it look blue. Now if we take the color temperature from 6500 Kelvin to 2700 Kelvin, it makes it look green. Now that is something that often happens with paper backdrops. Because of the single, very seamless one color finish of paper backdrops, it is very difficult to discern differences as there are no textures. So even a slight adjustment in the color temperature of the light can vastly change the color of your backdrop. This is something you must remember. Now let's see how it looks at 4000 Kelvin color temperature. You can see the warm green color that had appeared at 2700 Kelvin has vastly reduced. You can see the gray tone of the backdrop returning. To achieve again the color perfect tone of the backdrop, we'll have to go back to 5600 Kelvin. And there, the Indus Light Dark Grey looks once again like the Indus Light Dark Grey. So as you can see, both the neutral tones, the Spongy before this and the Indus Light Dark Grey, vary completely at different color temperatures. This is something you need to keep in mind when shooting with single color backdrops. Now this is for all the lighting nerds out there. Let's take a deep dive into the technical understanding of how light works. The human eye is most used to seeing different objects under the natural light of the sun. But even that differs at different times of the day. So if we consider the sunlight at the golden hour, we see the full spectrum of this sunlight on your screen. Now if we compare it to other light sources, you can see that none of these light sources are able to match the full wavelength spectrum of natural light. The only light source that comes close is the studio flash. And that's why across the world, all product images are shot with studio flashes. Now let's look at a different topic that explains why your backdrop might look different under different sources of light. This is a subject called metamerism. In metamerism, the pigments that are used to make the colors of these backdrops react differently to different wavelengths of light. Some pigments react very strongly to yellow wavelengths of light, while others react very strongly to blue wavelengths of light. This is why under different light sources, a backdrop can look completely different. Now, another vital point to keep in mind while looking at backdrop images on a website is that different screens have different color profiles. So the image you see on one device may look completely different on another device. As we just saw, the spectrum of wavelength of the light source, the metamerism of the pigments, and the difference in color profiles of the screen also affect how a product or a backdrop looks different on screen and in real life. To sum it up, we just learned that the color of your backdrop, or any product for that matter, can change drastically depending on the light source or the lighting setup that you use. So now you know how to see the right color of your backdrop. I hope you have learned something new today. If you have any further questions, don't forget to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like, share and subscribe for more such videos. Bye-bye.